As humans, we love to categorize and define things. So we have sorted living things into a classification system. We call this process of organizing living things taxonomy. The organization of species is hierarchical. There are different levels of classification, from very broad, like at the level of domain, to very specific, like the species level. Here's an example of the red fox, which belongs to the species Vulpes vulpes. If we go up a level, it's in the genus Vulpes, which includes many species of fox. Then up to the family level, the family Canidae includes all dogs. Up to class, we have a group containing all mammals. So you can see that the classification levels get broader and less specific as we go up. If two species are in the same category at one level, they will be in the same categories at all the broader levels above that. So our red fox belongs to the phylum Chordata. That's the same phylum that we belong to. So if both red foxes and humans are in the phylum Chordata, they must also be both in the kingdom Animalia and the domain Eukarya. Now take a look at this question from participation assignment 2. You know from looking at the hierarchy here that humans are in the genus and species Homo sapiens. The genus Homo is in the family Hominidae. All hominids are in the order Primates. All primates are in the class Mammalia. All mammals are in the phylum Chordata. All chordates are animals, and all animals are in the domain Eukarya. If you know that mice are also in the class Mammalia, does that tell you which phylum they belong to? Pause the video and answer this question now. Now give this question a try. Enjoy this picture of my dog while you pause the video. So what is a species? It seems like a simple question, but it's actually a lot harder to define than you might think. Again, we humans love to label and categorize things, but nature doesn't always fit perfectly into the boxes we create for it. Scientists have come up with several different ways to define what a species is. The morphological species concept focuses on anatomy. The phylogenetic species concept is based on genetics and ancestry. In this class, we will focus on the biological species concept, which is based on reproductive ability and behavior. The biological species concept defines species as populations of organisms that interbreed or could possibly interbreed with each other under natural conditions, and that cannot interbreed with organisms from other such groups. So again, the biological species concept focuses on the ability of organisms to successfully reproduce and produce viable offspring. It does not define species by their anatomy or genetic relatedness. Pay attention here to the words under natural conditions. Sometimes organisms theoretically could interbreed, but are not likely to because they don't live in the same physical space. Here's another question for participation assignment 2. Again, there are multiple ways to define a species. Which of these is how the biological species concept does it? So what determines if two organisms can interbreed? There are two types of barriers that prevent organisms from different species from interbreeding. A prezygotic barrier is something that happens before the creation of a zygote or an embryo. So this is something that actually prevents sperm from one species from fertilizing the egg of another. This might mean a couple of different things. A prezygotic barrier could be that the two organisms can't physically mate with each other. Or it could be a process, such as a chemical reaction, that prevents fertilization even if those animals mate. Sometimes two organisms of different species can mate and fertilization can happen, but they still can't produce fertile offspring. This is an example of a post-zygotic barrier, so a barrier occurring after a zygote is formed. Mules are an example of this. Mules are produced by crossing a horse and a donkey, which are two different species. The horse and the donkey can produce this hybrid offspring, but the mule can't reproduce. And remember, producing viable offspring was part of our definition of a species. So because mules are infertile, we consider horses and donkeys different species. Here's another participation question for you. What do ligers tell you about reproduction between lions and tigers? But again, nature doesn't always fit into nice boxes. Currently, mallards and black ducks are considered separate species, but their hybrid can also produce fertile offspring. So you can see how when we actually look at what is happening in nature, it doesn't always fit neatly in those boxes we've created. Another example that makes species hard to define is asexual species, where individuals reproduce on their own without interbreeding. Again, this doesn't fit in our biological species definition, right? We see asexual reproduction in a lot of non-animal organisms. But even many animals and some vertebrates can even reproduce asexually. For example, in several species of lizards, there are no males. Females reproduce asexually, which means their offspring are clones of themselves. When we try to classify extinct organisms into species, all we have to go on is morphology. We can't use their reproductive behavior to determine if two organisms are one species or two different species. So again, it is difficult to define extinct species using the biological species concept.